I'm walking through the neighborhood, you're always being greeted and talking with the neighbors. And I find out that another one of my neighbors had a stroke. It's heartbreaking because we know what has happened with the quality of air and the condition in our neighborhood, for our residents. And it just leaves you feeling so bad because there's nothing you can do about it for that person right now. But the struggle to try to make people aware of what the health conditions are. Even in my own family, I have a number of people that had stroked out. My youngest son had severe asthma. And so I recognize, the lack of quality of air in my neighborhood. Thank you.
I was a Buffalo County Council member, I think in 2003, and I served with the former Senator, former Councilmember Antoine Thompson. And I recall having a meeting set up with a gentleman who I didn't know at the time. His name was Clark Eaton. And he came to my office and he talked about filling in the Humboldt Parkway. And I'm looking at a big tunnel. I'm looking at an expressway. I'm looking at, oh, it's not going to happen because they don't ever go back and replace or restore something that they have taken away. So we stuck with it. But we listened, and then Antoine, when he became a senator, went to Albany, and he was the first person to work with Rock. I'm not sure what their names were called then, but he worked with them to ensure that they got Chris People Stoked to develop the first grant, a state grant to give them, I think it was $10,000. Antoine Thompson, which should get a lot of credit, was very instrumental in doing that. And they talked about restoration. I became involved lately when they had restarted a meeting. And I attended one at the Science Museum, and I recall Denise, a friend of mine who grew up on East Ferry Street when she was a little good baby. She was very perturbed because she said that that meeting they only had display, they only had information, they weren't engaged in the community. She said, "I don't know what's going on. I have a family home on Humboldt Parkway that we're going to pass through generations, and I'm concerned about it. But I'm concerned about it because they're not talking to us." And I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" She said, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "Well, there's something about a tunnel that they talk about." She said, "Tunnel." She said, "I know nothing about that. My relatives and neighbors on Humboldt Parkway knows nothing about that. They don't know anything about that." I started attending meetings. Then I met somehow, I'm not sure who, which members of the East Side Parkway Coalition. I met them. I was invited to a meeting at the Delavan Grider Center, and I went to the meeting, heard more and more, and what they had in line for the city of Buffalo and for the Humboldt Parkway and for this region was restoration, complete restoration. I'm a history buff, and I like history, and I like the fact that we were one of the first parkway system in the world. That Franklin Lloyd Umstead and his partner came to Buffalo, was hired for Buffalo to put the first world-class parkway system in this world in the city of Buffalo. And so I said, well, that's a good idea. Let's work towards that. So that's how I got involved with the East Side Parkways Coalition.
I love my community. We have fun. We come together. We have Juneteenth. We have the Pine Grill. We have Jefferson Live. We have everything. It's just beautiful how the community comes together. But at the same time, we are dying.
Yes.
The East Side, Buffalo, is a cancer cluster. And the Humboldt 33, it contributes to it. We have vehicles, we have noise, we have exhaust systems that are coming through our communities and leaving bad air. As I explained to someone else, this tunnel that they're going to be bringing to our community is like a chamber. It's going to be a guide to further pollute the air. It's going to be increasing the noise. It's going to be increasing the accidents. I'm concerned about how they're going to address emergencies. I'm concerned about the air quality as far as things getting worse. I have seen people in my neighborhood fall again and again from all kinds of heart diseases, cancers, bronchitis. They suffer from bronchitis, asthma, and it's all attributed to that expressway. The tunnel is not the answer. It will only concentrate, it will only increase the pollution in our area. I don't see how it's going to improve anything because of the cost. It doesn't make any sense to me no matter what way I look at it. It's not going to help us financially. It's not going to help us physically. It's actually going to kill future generations. I'm not going to sit quietly and let this happen. I cannot. I will not. My mom died of some type of heart disease. It was lung related. She ended up going on oxygen and eventually she died. We didn't live in a smoking household. Neither one of my parents smoked, but somehow my mother had a breathing condition in which cysts started to grow on her lungs. I take it personally. I love my community, as I said before. And I want us to continue to live and not die out. This is not the answer. We need to fill in the expressway. We need to bring it back to its original form because based on the history, it was illegal with what they did in the first place. They came in, divided our community, and now we're dying.
Right now, since the expressway, but right now, low life expectancy right around the Kensington Expressway is in the 99th percentile in New York State. Uh, I mean, you can't just say that and then be like, oh yeah, that's just another fact. Um, think about it. People are dying younger right next to this expressway than anywhere else in New York State. In fact, anywhere else than the entire country. Uh, Low life expectancy on either side of the expressway is in the 95 to 100 percentile nationwide. Uh, and that's where we're at right now. Um, I got a lot more facts and figures for you any old time, but I'll leave it at that.
Reason why I got involved in ESP is because my mother suffers from COPD. My sister was a low birth rate baby. She was premature. She, to this day, still has lung issues. She has asthma. And I think that before Brad and I had the conversation about um, the Kensington 33 project, it never dawned on me that the conditions that my sister endures, that my mother has, could even be directly related to environmental issues based on where we live. We've lived along the Kensington 33 all of my life, all of my mother's life. But my mother is an educator, retired now, and my sister works in the community. So it's not like they worked at the steel mill or they worked at the Chevy plant, where they could have their job reflected or caused them to have these health issues. And I'm sure that a lot of people who are suffering, who have suffered, who have died, did not work in those types of jobs, who have been silenced because they're no longer with us. Their life has been cut short. If we allow what's on the table to happen again, we won't be able to change it for another 60 to 80 years. You know, they talk about the lack of trees on the east side, the lack of green space, on the east side. And COVID really showed us that our one park, the MLK Park, can't hold a whole community. When we were sequestered in our homes and we were finally able to get out, that park was jam packed.
When we started going door to door, I never thought about Humboldt Parkway being disrupted until I stood at Humboldt Parkway in East Ferry. We had those rallies and protests, and hear that tremendous noise that's coming from the expressway. Not just the toxin, but the noise. And I said, how can you day after day sit out there and hear that? And then when I look around, I look at people's front yards, it's warm, they're not sitting outside. I look in the backyard, they're not barbecuing because it's too toxic to do that. So literally they're prisoner in their homes and they have to keep the windows down. And one guy at our first meeting we had said that he hasn't got a good night's sleep since he's been there. That's the 1960s. People talk about, well, if we fill it in and we're going to have more traffic, how would the expressway get downtown to the medical corridor quicker, or if they need to be? And look around now. And on the expressway now, you don't have people, you don't have that many ambulance on the expressway right now. If when you travel on the expressway, you see an ambulance, they go in the side street. They go in the Buffalo General through the side street. They don't use the expressway on except on very rare occasion. So I think that argument that people need the expressway to get to the hospital quicker, just a myth. That's not happening. And then also the 70,000 cars, there was a survey done that said that 30,000 less people are traveling to Buffalo because a lot of the office buildings are not filled, they're empty. And so we had to reassess the argument that tell us we can't do the restoration because half the things it's telling us is not feasible or is not true.
Our kids were out there having fun, right? They were out there running around, but they were also breathing in all of that toxin long before we even knew that it was a problem. These are kids. And if we don't care about what happens to our kids, if we don't care about what happens to, populations inside the city, then we really don't care about people at all.
Where are the hospitals? They're along the Kensington Expressway. So we have the workers, we have the patients. They're also dealing with what the toxins are that are coming from the Humboldt Expressway. Not to mention the businesses, also the schools. The children are being affected by these toxins.
Yes.
You have so many schools that are along the expressway where it's open, where they're breathing this in for 6 hours a day.